Welcome to the Woorielic Farm School. Unfortunately, because you can't come here, I've decided I'm going to come to you. I know that's a bit spooky. Well, g'day again. Here we are in my sheep's paddock. Say hello to Yummy. Hello, Yummy. Now, we've been talking about carax. Here's a classic, beautiful carax, but it's in my sheep's paddock. So, what's going on here? We've talked about how it's good for holding the ground, so it'll be used to replace the willows along the Yarra River when they've pulled out that weed. We've also looked at how I've collected the seed and propagated it, in other words, grown it in the nursery. You've even collected, I've supplied you with some seedlings, and hopefully by now you will have potted some of those up. And that'll be useful for your unit called propagating plants. In other words, growing plants. Now, I'm going to show you in this video another method of growing plants, and this is by division. And I'm going to sacrifice one of these lovely lovely caraxes, because here in the sheep paddock it's actually a weed. Down by the river, only 50 metres away, it's not a weed, but here it is. Because a weed is basically any plant growing where you don't want it to grow. Why wouldn't I want it to grow here? Well, old Yummy up there, hiding behind the pine tree, which is another weed, doesn't eat them. It eats the grass near it, so the grass doesn't get a chance to go to seed, but the carax does. When the carax goes to seed and the grass doesn't, it can take over. And all through the sheep paddock are examples. There's little caraxes popping up everywhere. And if I don't chip them out, they will take over. If you want better evidence of that, another weed I've got in here is thistle. God knows where thistles have come from or how they came to Australia. They are the national emblem of Scotland. So in Scotland they're probably not called a weed, but here they are. Again, the sheep doesn't eat them, so I have to go around and chip them out. Every year I walk around and chip, getting rid of the thistles. If I didn't, it'll take over. Want evidence of that? Well, I must have missed one. And look at this. That has all come from one thistle. Too late to chip it out. It's gone all the way up the hill. Big buggers. I'll have to get the Roundup here, or some herbicide, which means I'll probably end up killing the grass around it as well for a year. That's not ideal either. So if I don't do something about these things, the whole paddock will become dominated by the very plants that Yummy won't eat. So, how do I do it? I'm gonna take advantage of these guys and show you how to do division. I don't need two hands for this, but the first thing, I'll just pick a nice plant that's easily managed, and I'm going to give it a good old haircut. The reason why I give it a haircut is when a plant is relocated, and that's what I'm going to do to this. Yeah, now she's going to make a lot of me and eat something. No, you're not. No, she's just doing what I'm... There, back to... She turned the camera off on me. I give it a haircut so that the root to leaf ratio is better, and it helps the plant overcome the shock of being transplanted and divided, as I'll tell you. And she's trying to... Okay, you can be a movie star. Right, here we are in my own little poly house at home. Now what I'm doing is, after I've given them a haircut, I've dug out the carax plant and I've started to divide it. Out of the one plant, look at this, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll probably get another 3 out of that one. Oops, that one. So that's propagating by division. Now, I'm going to take them straight down to the river and put them into the places where they're going to be at home. But I'm also going to put in a few other plants as well and recreate the habitat that perhaps should have been there before the willows. Here we are back by the river. The trees that were cut down, the willows, have all been mulched up, and across the river they're ready to go for the replanting. They'll do some on this side too, but doesn't hurt to help. In fact, some of the carax that we're growing at the farm school will be sold to the Friends of the Helmeted Honeyeater, who then sell them on to the contractors, and they'll end up back here, quite ironically. This little spot right here, you can see there was a big willow. The roots are way up the other end, and it had many, many branches. And it was massive. Now, I didn't mind it because it was actually a big shady tree, and we used to park our tables and chairs under it on a hot day. So in a way, we've lost something. There's a few native plants, indigenous plants still around, but they're not going to become big trees, and they're not going to shade out the understory. So what will happen is weeds will probably grow in here unless we put in the good stuff. So that's where I'm going to use our propagated by division caraxes. I'll make a border of that around. It's not exactly landscaping because it's in the wild, but might as well make it pretty because this is where we come down to have picnics and other things. So we'll have the understory. We've got a little bit of mid-story stuff, but we'll add things like, there's the native things here are things like wattles. And I'll even put in a couple of manna gum. That's those trees there. Now it'll take 200 years for it to grow to that size. They've got to start somewhere. So if I put in a nice range of things in here, I can monitor it and show future students how it went. So every few months I'll take a happy snappy of what we've got, and we'll see it develop over the years. Now, quickly to show you how, quite simply, oh look at that, hey, look, soon as the willow's gone, we notice things. I honestly did not notice this until right this minute. That is a muttonwood. It's a good tree. It's a local indigenous tree. And it was struggling underneath that willow, trying to exist. Now that it's gone, the willow's gone, it'll happen. So that's a good thing. So some things just pop back naturally, but they can do with a bit of help. All right, so what I'm going to do to help is just, whoa, gee, it's hard. Dig a bit of a hole. I could use 2 hands for this. Oh. Anyway, you're getting the idea. I won't be filming too much of this. Dig a bit of a hole and simply put the old carax in. I'm going to need 2 hands. Oh no, there we are. And that's basically it. And this is why we remove some of, like, I'm not going to do it to all of them because I can dig a decent hole for some of the others, but if I'm struggling to dig the holes like this one, it's a good idea to give it a haircut first. I'll even get rid of some of that dead stuff and just keep an eye on the good living one. I'll get stuck into it and show you what it looks like when we're finished. Yep, I'm back at the river with more plants. So I've got a variety of them now. So in the ground already are the caraxes. Later on I'll put in some poas further up. That's another grass or ground cover. But now I'm going to be putting in some blackwoods and a range of different things, but including a couple of manna gum as well. So that tree there, that tiny little thing there, is going to turn into that with a bit of luck, give it a couple of 100 years. Now this is where I go back to our pots. Round pots are alright, but these tubes are the better thing for a whole range of reasons. First of all, the roots grow downwards. I'll see if I can get this one out, and it makes them easy to get out too. Hang on. No, I can't do it, but I've shown you that before. But the other reason why they're handy is because we don't have trouble digging holes. This is called a Hamilton tree planter, and I can find a spot in amongst the carax here where I could put a hole for the, now a couple of little taps down like that, and you can see I have the perfect hole to put in a tree. Bit of a wiggle, and out comes the dirt. Here is my tree. You can see the roots are growing nicely downwards. They're not root bound. It should fit in nicely into the hole. Now I don't want to have it up here. That'll dry out, and I don't want it buried too deeply because that would basically allow it to rot. So pack it in nice and firmly, and I'll put a guard around that later on. The guard prevents things like rabbits, possibly deer, but the main reason for why I'll put guards around them here is so that when Melbourne Water come to do the big re-veg work, they'll go, hello, somebody's been here, and they'll take a bit of care, and they'll realise that we've put in plants already.